Hello, everyone.
All right, we should be
We are
live officially.
we are
Yeah,
live.
yes, we are.
Giving it a few minutes for everybody to trickle in. In the meantime, we
Yep.
will introduce ourselves. We already have a viewer watching. Excellent.
Oh,
Good
nice.
start.
I am American Populist. I discuss U.S. political topics, cultural issues, and events. And I will have
Yeah.
two special guests joining me today to discuss CRT and education. Buckeye and Populist, Missouri. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I am Buckeye Politics. I'm from Ohio, obviously. I talk about politics, American history, predictions, elections, all that good stuff. And yeah, it'll be fun.
Hi, I'm Populous Missourian. I'm obviously from Missouri. I talk about election predictions. I also do election nights, and I also talk about politics in general. And yeah.
All right, and without further ado for my special guests, we will be going right into our topic, critical race theory in education. I will be bringing up a PowerPoint as we discuss our topics today.
Yep.
And let's get right into it. So getting into this topic, CRT in education, why is this important? This is important because the education of your children is at stake here. The minds of your children.
They're after your children.
Yes, they are after your
talk about
children.
it. They're not shy about it.
No, they're not. They're
Yeah,
very brazen.
they're
They sing
pretty
songs.
outward about it. Yeah, they just like literally admit it.
Yes, if it isn't the teachers who are literally pedophiles, as we saw on Twitter today, it's literally the school system itself that teaches your kids pedophilia.
Fire them all.
Yes, bring back the firing squads. And let me bring you up a quote which will summarize our enemies' thinking on this topic. Our enemies understand this topic very well, and you need to as well. And I'm going to bring up a quote by Vladimir Lenin here, which will really help you sink into your mind why education has been so co-opted by the left and taken over. Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. The statement and context of that is very deep and profound, and could be a video on itself, but what do you guys have to say about it?
It's so true. I mean, every evil and corrupt government in history has done their bidding through the children. I mean, you had the Hitler Youth with the Nazis. You had Stalin teaching kids from a young age, full of propaganda. Everywhere you look throughout history, every major regime and government that has wanted to stay in power for whatever reason and through whatever means has done it through children. And yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's really what's going on in our country right now, except it's not necessarily for the it's not necessarily for the right, like like the left might say, but it's actually from the left themselves. They are, they're winning with education, they're winning school board elections, and they're being put in charge of such establishments, and for that reason, they are allowed to corrupt the minds of our children, and we can't have that much longer.
No, the minds of our children should be a top priority, and it's just a joke that conservatives in this country, cuck-servatives, as I like to call them, have done nothing about this for almost 100 years at this point, as communists have taken over school boards, education, and book publishers. And that is why every time we see a story coming out of these school boards, local school boards calling parents who show up to school board meetings domestic terrorists. And think of the implications of that
Yep.
statement, domestic terrorists.
Yeah.
And remember that a parent always knows more about what their child needs than a politician does.
Yes,
Yep.
the reason why the CRT and the school boards have struck such a note with the press, and the reason why they're such attacking these parents, is because the school boards and the education has really hit a nail on the head here with the education, because they don't want parents, to understand how brainwashed the education system is doing to their kids and what it's teaching them. Many of the
We
parents don't even look at what the books their children are being recommended to read, much of which are pornographic,
Yeah,
CRT. We
it is
go
really
on and on here.
problematic. It's really problematic.
Yes, children are the most manipulable, and that is when you plant the seeds, as Lenin so pointed out. Why do you think they care so much about education? Why they have taken over every single aspect of the U.S. education?
Because they know that children are corruptible, and they know that they can get their way through the education, well, quote, education of children. They know that if they can take control of the American education system, that they can raise the next generation of Bolsheviks.
Definitely. I mean, it's more accurate in more ways than one, unfortunately. But one of the founding fathers actually had a great point about education, and he was against public education. I think it was John Adams, or it might have been, it was one of those people. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he said that public education was a bad thing, and that the
Well, he
only
was
way,
right.
yes, he was,
Yeah.
because if it was centralized, it could be easily corrupted. And that was such a great point. And the reason public education was sold to the US public was because they always said that parents would have the say in education. Parents first is what they said, and that's how they sold education. And now they're saying parents last. And if you dare get involved, you are a domestic terrorist, and the FBI will hunt you down and, yeah, will be used against you accordingly.
Yeah. That's why we need to actually give more power to parents and less power to a elitist school board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Department of Education in general,
Yeah.
all of
Well,
them.
the issue with school boards is they're often overlooked in terms of like elections, local elections especially. Like how many of you out there actually know where your school, like where your school board, like the people on your school board, where do they actually stand? Can you honestly say you know if they support CRT or not? Like no one talks about school boards, and that's why they've been so easy to take over by the left.
That is true.
Yeah, many people on the right don't understand the importance of local elections. And that's how the left took over Colorado, actually. Colorado used to be an extremely populist right-wing state, but how now it is one of the most left-leaning. How did they do that? They took over local elections one city at a time, folks. That's how they took over Colorado. They understand
Yep.
this very well. And the right needs to understand this. And people are starting to understand this. Local school board elections have been more popularized in the right-wing conscious lately, as we have seen their importance. That's one of the main reasons why Youngkin got elected in Virginia, was because of education and CRT and school boards, actually.
That
And
is
just
true.
because Terry was such an awful campaigner, too.
And because Terry dug his own grave.
Yeah.
He definitely did. But let's move on to a different topic. A different subsection, I should say. Here's just a sliver of how education has been co-opted. These are the top school book publishers in the United States. And if you have a quick look, you can do this anytime, folks. Go to their Twitter, go to McGraw-Hill and Howington Millen, I think that's how you say it, accounts. And if you look at them, you can't tell the difference between them and the Squad.
We should
Folks,
not have
these
these
people
people writing
publish
textbooks.
all of your school books. These two right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, if conservatives were actually serious, they would immediately get rid of these book publishers and publish their own.
They're gonna eat your
right-wing book
kids.
publishers. Yes, they would, if they were actually serious about this battle. Unfortunately, many of them are not. Many of them are like the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, who say they're going to ban CRT, but it's still being taught, as my friend Buckeye can elaborate.
Oh yeah. So I actually was exposed to CRT for the just after the Youngkin election. It was crazy. Literally the day after Youngkin got elected, I was exposed to CRT at my school. And keep in mind, this is a private Catholic school in white working class Ohio. Like, this is the last place you would expect to find CRT. But we had this group session where everyone got a cup, an empty cup, and then a cup full of beads. And the lady would read off statements, and if you felt like they applied to you, then you took a bead from the cup full of beads and put it in the empty cup. And there were these really anti-white, racist, honestly, statements about how white people were being treated in the media, stuff like that. And the whole time, everyone was white except for one girl. She was black, and every time she read a statement, she put the bead in the cup. And then at the end, we had to like compare, and then it was about how we had more privilege than she did because none of us put beads in a cup. And it was so stupid, but it was also really powerful that the day after, um, yeah, Youngkin got elected is when that happened. So I'm guessing that maybe they're realizing that parents are waking up, and so yeah, we have to get. I think that they just are kind of scared that parents are realizing what's going to happen, and that they're going to lose their grip on the institution. So they're speeding up the process. That's my best guess.
That's an interesting story, Buckeye.
Yeah.
Definitely, I could corroborate that in Florida as well. Even in 2017 and 18, I had the same thing happen to me too. Even though it wasn't called CRT, it was basically CRT in a different way. And it was
Wow.
basically white people have caused all the ills in this country. Lynchings, constantly talking about white people as slave masters, constantly talking about white people as causing all the ills in society. And CRT on its most basic level can just be understood as the racial component of Marxism. That's all
Yep.
CRT is. And CRT was actually created in the Harvard Law School department. That is where critical race theory was born. It was born out of one of these communist institutions, as I like to call them, or globalist, whatever you prefer, the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can already hear the objections from the leftists in the audience. CRT isn't taught in schools. The media told me this. Okay, shut up. You're a loser. You're low IQ, and that's why you're easily manipulable. You just need to go away. You're not important. The high IQ people are talking here. CRT is being taught. And it doesn't matter if it is officially on the registration of the curriculum. If the teachers believe it and the books and the publishers, who you can look on their Twitter, believe it and say they are talking about equity and diversity and how CRT needs to be taught in schools, it is being taught. The book publishers say this, the teachers say this. And so it is being taught, even if it isn't officially on the curriculum. Such a stupid argument.
And I find it hilarious that the same people who want to talk about racial equality want safe spaces for people of color.
Yes, they are very hypocritical. They are very. Why do they do this? Well, the main reason why the communists, the left, the progressives, the globalists, whatever you want to call them, they're all the same thing, or they all work for the same person. The main reason for this insane indoctrination of your kids, and it is insane, we'll get into that later, is to negate the conservative advantage, which is we have kids. I mean, just look at us and then look at a progressive on Twitter. You can do this anytime. Massive difference there. Conservatives have kids because we're just more intelligent, obviously. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys have to say about that? What do you think that we just have kids?
Well, when you're conservative, I mean, I'd say 95% of true conservatives, probably closer to 99% of true conservatives, are pro-life. So obviously, you're gonna just the chances of having children are increased dramatically when your entire opposition is focused on murdering babies.
Yeah.
Not only that, but they also tell you how people are evil because of climate change and how we need to get rid of the population. There's too many people. You constantly hear this out of the eugenicist circles of the left and just climate change. If you look deep enough into climate change, you will get to them. It always leads in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
where people are seen as a pest upon the earth.
I know
And
another reason. Because conservatives are gigachads and progressives are virgins.
that
Facts.
is true. Most of the cases, I mean, just look at them. Most of these people are mentally ill and they can't do much besides take their pills and whine about Twitter. And
True.
most conservatives are also Christian, which plays a big role into why we have kids. And also,
Yeah.
progressive ideology at its fundamental core is anti human.
True.
And so the left has realized this a long time ago, and they realized that they need to negate this advantage that conservatives have. And so, what did they do about this? Well, this and education, they co opted them, they took them over. And so, if they can't have more kids, they will indoctrinate your kids into their religion, which is what progressivism is. It is a modern day heresy religion. And the
It,
left and the atheists will always tell you that it isn't a religion, it is a religion.
yep. And that's why the Young Democrats exist.
Yes, it is. These people are insane, not reasonable, very easy to manipulate, very weak, and we're just not. And so they need to fix this. And that's why we have mass immigration and indoctrination in the schools. That is the main reason why the country always moves further to the left every single year.
Yep.
And so let's get into the main topic of today's live stream, CRT. CRT, everybody's favorite new topic. CRT is not a new phenomenon. It is not this thing that randomly came out in 2020 that's just being a firestorm. No. CRT has been taught in your schools probably since your parents' generation, the boomers, were born. CRT was being taught back then. It just wasn't called CRT or wasn't formed as that, but it was being taught to your parents, just in a different form.
Yep.
CRT's main goal is to make the country more anti-white by blaming everything bad that happens on white people. White people are always the bad man in CRT thinking because it is just the racial component to Marxism. That's all CRT is. Don't let anyone on the left try to tell you otherwise. This is one of the main reasons why Virginia went red for the first time since 2009. Mainly because he got white people, and mainly white women in the suburbs, to understand that this is fundamentally against their interests and fundamentally against them as people. As you will see, many of the proponents of CRT, such as the person who wrote this book, Robin DiAngelo, are fundamentally anti-white and hate white people.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the professors are anti-white as well, which isn't news. But it's just brazen now because they feel so emboldened that they can teach this without any punishments or pushback, which is why people are waking up to the CRT phenomenon because they've gone so brazen. What do you guys have to say to that?
It's completely true.
It is true. And we need to fire our entire system.
We do. We need it destroyed. We need the school system burned out, honestly. At this point, would probably be the best way, but we will get into some solutions to the problem later.
Yeah.
And so you may be thinking, why is this a code, man? The CRT ban code, as I would like to call it, is the conservative left blanket. Is conservatives comforting themselves by saying, okay, we're going to ban it. Okay, well, that may seem as a great step, and it is, but they're not actually banning CRT. As my friend in Ohio can say, they did ban it, and it is still being taught. They haven't fundamentally addressed the problem in public schools. And so banning it is just a faux victory. It isn't a victory. It is just something to keep you distracted.
Yeah.
Actually getting rid of it is going much deeper into the problem. Because as I like to say, this is just putting a Band-Aid on an infected wound. You're not solving the problem.
Yep. You're sucking on that copium.
You are. Many conservatives like to cope, as we like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's mostly
So,
because their leaders are so incompetent, as well, as I would like to say.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Turtle Mitch.
Many of them like to talk a big talk. Ron, many other conservatives, Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott. We can keep going on.
Yeah.
They like to keep flying the horses. They've done something. And it may seem like they've done something, but it's just to keep you distracted while your children are still being indoctrinated. The country is still moving to the left. They're not doing anything. It's just to keep you coped. Keep
Mm-hmm.
you sucking on that copium as if you're winning. You're not winning. You are just being
Nope.
distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we actually need is penicillin to attack this infection, because it is a bad infection that goes very deep. And so how do we attack this infection, as I would like to call it, in the public school system? Let's get into some of these solutions, and I will open it up after this to our guest, and they can voice their opinions on my solutions. So a couple of the solutions I have voiced to fix this is we must destroy education. And not in a metaphorical sense, we must burn it down in red states where we have full control. And it is a joke that in Ohio, red Ohio, where we control the governorship, the state house, state senate, the House delegation, the governor, the senator, one of the senators, so to speak, CRT is still being taught. Leftism is still being taught in your school openly. Teachers are still teaching your kids this, and they feel emboldened and brazen as if they can do this. They need to fear us again, because they've realized that you will do nothing to stop them. You will put in these fake bans, which will do nothing. They're just teethless. They won't actually solve the problem. And so one of these solutions is you must replace the textbooks. As I said earlier, the two top publishers are basically AOC. And so if you have AOC teaching your, you'd be surprised when they end up like AOC.
I'd
So
be scared.
You should be scared. Even in a Catholic high school, you are being taught, your children are still being taught by AOC. That should scare you.
That's just scary. That's scary.
Yeah. It should scare you, because many of these people want to kill you. And that is not a joke. That is where CRT is leading. And so you need to get rid of Huffington and McGraw-Hill. They need to be gone. Burn them, as the left would like to say. You're burning books. Yes, we are. Burning books is based, actually.
We do a little bit of burning.
It is. It's called we do a little bit of book burning. And
We have
not only
to,
do you need to
though.
get rid of them, you need to replace them with the right-wing America First authors. You must fight fire with fire. Now, a quick question. If your opponent was was stabbing you with a sword and you were bleeding to death, and somebody said, hey, I can offer you a gun to fight back, and you said, no, man, that would be against our principles. You would say that person is an idiot. And that is what conservatives have been doing for 50 years.
That's what's going on now.
Yes. And so what we need to do is take the AK-47 and kill the person who is stabbing you and causing you to bleed to death. Metaphorically, of course, Susan. And so replace the books completely with right-wing America First authors. And there are tons of these people out there, tons of them. The governor of Ohio could do this tomorrow if he wanted to. The governor of Idaho, the governor of Arkansas, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, could do this right now if he wanted to. But they don't. And so we need to push the Overton window in this direction. We must push our governors, our senators, our state senators in this direction. We must destroy public education as it currently is. It is a threat to us and our children in many more ways than one. And so you must fire all teachers. All teachers. You must get rid of the teachers' unions, and you must replace teachers with parents. This is negotiable, but this is just a solution I have. And people who are friendly to us. America First teachers. You could easily start an organization like that in Ohio and replace all the teachers in Ohio. All the public school teachers. Mike DeWine could fire them right now if he wanted to.
Mike Parson, too.
And so I will open the floor to my guest. What do you guys think of my solutions, and what solutions do you have to this problem?
Well, I personally think the solutions you offered are good, but I don't think we're necessarily there yet. I mean, right now, I think they're a tad extreme for I mean, obviously, if it comes down to it, we have to do that, and I support a lot of what you said, but we should try to find another solution before firing everyone first. I think reform should be the first option, and I mean, if that fails, then obviously we should go your route. But if we just fired every teacher, the amount of harm that would cause, I don't think it's as easy as just firing every teacher. I think we have
No,
to
I
actually.
probably oversimplified that.
I
That
think
was
we
just
actually
a
have to go
suggestion.
into the institutions, do things with tax incentives and money, big dollar, and like stuff like that. And obviously we have to find a way to sort of do that. But I don't think we can. But I don't think there's a way we can actually go out and just fire every left-leaning teacher. We have to change it through the curriculum passed through the state. I think that's the best way to do it. Most states can decide like the core curriculum and core classes that students have to take. So I think we should pass legislation that makes those core curriculums have to lean America first and ban CRT and in any kind of race theory in schools. And we also have to pass bills that make education have to lean America first.
Yeah.
I think that's the way we go about doing it. But if that fails, then yeah. But until then.
I mean, yeah, I agree. So basically, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I would say my solutions are a tad extreme, but we are at that point where we have to start getting extreme with this problem because we are being, as I said, stabbed to death with a sword and we are bleeding to death, metaphorically. The young blood of this country is being stabbed metaphorically with this sword of education. And so some of the solutions that you said in there is we have to replace the curriculum. And I totally agree with that. You start by getting rid of McGraw-Hill. And the other one, you replace all of the books, all of them. You get rid of the recommended reading list, which is insane. You should take a look at that when you guys have done this live stream. Insane. Mostly pornographic books, and it promotes pedophilia. It does. And so you shouldn't have AOC teaching your kids. That is a big problem we have. And most teachers are AOC, and I can confirm that. Even in Red, Florida, the county I came from, really Republican, we had AOC teaching every single aspect of your kid's education.
Sad.
Very sad indeed. And
Yep.
so it is time to go on the offensive on education. And we can do this in a variety of ways. As I said, we can get rid of the books. The states have the authority to publish any book publishers for school education they want, so they could get rid of McGraw-Hill and McAuliffe Education, whatever you call them, and replace them with right-wing book sources. And I can already feel the objection from the left. You're indoctrinating your kids. Yes, it is called power dynamics here, and the left has been using this against you for over 100 years at this point, so the argument does not fall or work in this day and age. Sorry, the left wants you dead, and if a person wants you dead, you have to fight back. And if you don't,
Yep.
you will die, or you will end up in a gulag, as many of these people on Twitter want to put you in, and your kids. And don't take that silly. That is a threat to you and your survival and your family, which they constantly talking about on Twitter. And so that is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed that. And so I will open up to discussions.
I think you hit the nail on the head with all your points.
True.
Really good presentation. Really well put together.
Definitely, and this issue is extremely important.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll
I don't
go
know
ahead and-
why. I don't know why conservatives aren't going, harder on the social issues, because, once the left takes full control over social issues and we're locked out of the country for years, then we'll wish we did something when the left is somehow, is at some point forcing us into a camp or something like that.
Definitely, definitely.
Then we'll regret not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a fundamental difference between the right and the left. The left, every time they get power, they will use it against you, their enemy, to the
And
fullest extent against you, boot on your neck. They will make your life as miserable as possible. And you can see this in states where they have full power. California, New York, they will make your life miserable. And what do conservatives do? Well, they're cucks, as I would like to call them, most of them. Cuck-conservatives. They do nothing. They
yep,
could gerrymander the states favorably in their power. They do not. They could replace the two national book publishers, which I said are basically AOC. They could get rid of, they could help us in education by getting rid of AOC in your books. Again, they do not. They don't understand power dynamics is the problem with the Republican Party. They're too afraid to use power, and we need to get rid of this stupid notion of principles.
yep.
Hmm.
Go on offense.
Yes, you need to go on the offensive if you're to ever take back a piece of this country. Ever. The right to rule is why the left believes they have a right to conquer every single state and control you. This is why California will conquer Texas, because California believes it has the right to impose its ideology on Texas. And Texas does not believe the same thing. And that's the fundamental difference here.
Yep. They're coming after you and your family, folks.
Yes, literally, because they're literally most of the teachers are pedophiles, as we saw in Virginia.
Yep. Glenn needs to clean house.
Every governor, Republican governor, needs a clean house.
I'm encouraging my governor, Mike Parson, to do the same. Clean house.
Yeah, not only clean house on education, there's so many things that we need to do as conservatives if we're to ever take back this country, which I
Yep.
doubt we will do at this point, but we still remain hopeful at some point.
Yeah, we just need a tad of not being such a wimp party. The party of the
Yeah.
wimps.
Yeah, the party of the cowards, as I like to call the GOP. They're cowards. Most of them are cowards.
Yeah. The left has been going on offensive against us for years. We need to start fighting back.
Yes, when they're brazen and they talk about how they indoctrinate your kids, they talk about how they can throw you in prison and talk about how they can call you a domestic terrorist and send their goons, the FBI, upon you. And the conservatives' response to this is, well, big government is bad and taxes are our main priority. You shouldn't be surprised why we lose.
No, we should go really hard on social issues. That's how you win.
Yes, social issues, social conservatism is a big part.
Of course, it has to be room for economics, of course, but you have to go on social issues.
Yes, and the Republicans could do this in many ways at the local and state level.
Yeah.
Outside of major cities, most Americans are still center right on social issues. Like that's partially the reason Trump won in 2016, and it's a big reason why it was so close in 2020, even with the whole pandemic and all this against him. Just because outside of major cities, America is still center right. Trump
Yeah.
managed to make it close, and that's why Youngkin won as well. Even parents
Yeah.
that voted, even people that voted for Biden and are left and seem to be independent, left leaning, they're still center right on a lot of social issues, mostly education, as we saw. And that's a big reason Youngkin won. So not only will it, so it's not as controversial to be more socially conservative than most people say it is.
Yes, but the Republican Party is too busy opening a gay chapter. That's what the Republican Party's focus is on.
Yeah.
Instead of actually being socially conservatives and maybe increasing the base, which we could obviously do, they're a bit too busy trying to win over people who are not conservative, not inherently conservative, who live in cities, is fundamentally against you and your way of life. Fundamentally idiots is what the conservative leadership is, honestly, at this point.
Yep.
They're fools, they're out of touch, they don't understand anything.
We need people who are like socially right wing, but like economically a right wing populist.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's many things we can do ourselves if we want to see change. We could show up to local school boards, show up, vote for people who are not communist, because most of them are communist. Just
Yeah.
look at videos of the school boards; they are all communist. Okay, so we could start there, getting rid of all of your school board officials. You could easily do that.
Yeah.
Elections on your city council. Many of those people are not our friends either. Most of those people are center right at best. We could easily replace those people.
And remember, folks, we don't win when we don't turn out. So turn out.
Yes, vote in your local and state elections because most people do not show for these local elections. Show up.
Yep.
We outnumber these people. We are the majority still.
We just don't turn out.
No. And luckily, most people are starting to wake up to how important school boards are to your kids' education, but we need to go much further than just the school boards. We need to replace the books that your kids are being taught. And we need to punish teachers who are going to teach critical race theory anyway. As we saw, a teacher in Missouri was fired because he taught critical race theory when it was banned. An excellent move. We need to see more of that in red states. Make it miserable. And
I'm proud of my state for doing that.
Make it a living hell for these people, and they will move out of your state in droves.
Yep.
Again,
we could take back
these people in our states.
We could take back the states we had.
And again, these people exist in our states. They exist in Oklahoma. Look it up. They do. They exist in Idaho. They exist in Utah. They exist in Montana. And so we have a lot of work to do at the local level, the city level, the mayoral level. Your mayor still has a lot of power in your city. They could stop pride flags being hung in your city as a desecration.
So my mayor's a Democrat.
Again, this won't apply to big cities, again, especially not to a gay city like you live in. But most of us right-wingers still live in suburbs or rural areas. So if you live in a small town, these mayoral elections, very few people turn out. So you could easily get 50 people and easily sway these elections very easily.
All right, guys, the liberal virus is kind of spreading over here. I gotta flee to the rurals.
Yep.
Definitely, it's spreading to the suburbs like a rotten cancer, as I like to call it.
Yep. All right, guys. I actually gotta go though. So.
All right, great. Have a conversation. Have a good day, man. And
fun.
subscribe to Populous Missourian if you haven't already.
That's right. Subscribe to Populous Missourian or you're not based. No, I'm kidding.
All right, see you later, man.
See ya.
Yeah, see ya.
All right, do you have anything else you want to talk about, Buckeye? And I'm just going to get my closing statements, and I'll probably end up the live stream.
Yeah, no. Learn about your school board. Try to find them online, read about their positions. That's what I did with mine. And that's how I found out that one of my school board people actually supports CRT. And because of that, we managed to vote her out just a little more than a week ago. So
yes, these things are winnable, folks.
Yeah,
I know most people are black-pilled about fortification, but that really doesn't apply to local level.
Yep.
That really doesn't. You can easily fix this, sway people to our side, email your local state house representative, email your local school board officials, your mayor, email them, tell them about how you need to get rid of these book publishers, replace them, move them towards our ideas. That is how you win the culture. That's how you move states right. That's how you win the country back. One county at a time, one municipality at a time, one state at a time, until you win the country back.
Yep.
Folks, remain optimistic. We will win in the end. Good will win. I know it doesn't seem like it now, but we will. Remain chads, remain optimistic, and remember, black pills are for gay people. Anyway, have a good day. I'm American Populist.